Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to make drink photography lighting like this. Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to make this image. It's going to be a workshop style video, complete from beginning to end, unscripted, none of those fancy B-roll montages that other people use to cut out all the boring parts. I'm keeping the boring parts in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to cut most of them out. But I'm going to show you the full shoot from beginning to end. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes again, but I will come out triumphant in the end. Let's get started. Okay, to kick out this shoot, I have my large pint glass here for my Paloma, and I'm going to be composing it to the right-hand side of my frame. I want to make sure that I completely crop off the right-hand side of the glass. I don't want any light poking through between the glass and the edge of the frame. And I also want to leave enough negative space for my large grapefruit garnish that's going to be kind of the hero of my shot today. Now, before we dive too deep into the weeds here, let me give you a quick overview of the tools that I'm going to be using, as well as kind of my motivation for this shot. So I have my 100mm macro lens there. It's kind of lowered and tilted slightly up to make this glass look heroish in the frame. I'm shooting it on my Canon 5DS, and all of that is tethered to Capture One on my computer. It's in the other room there, that's why I'm pointing that direction. And then it's wirelessly sent over to my tablet, which I'll use to compose and take the pictures. If you've seen my videos before, you kind of know what's going on. But I have a large orange background here, which will create a nice monochromatic type of image with my grapefruit juice here. Now I'm going to use this as a stand-in. The final drink will have carbonation because this is part of a triptych, which all falls under the theme of carbonated summer. So I'm really tight and close in here because I want to capture all the action of that carbonation, those bubbles, the fizz popping off the top, and make this garnish of grapefruit really nice and bold and big in the frame. Really trying to create the essence of summer in a glass. Now, I realize a lot of you probably have very little experience with studio strobes, and you might find them a little intimidating. So in the time that it takes me to set up this light, I'm going to try to quickly explain my philosophy around lighting and the key principles that I think really will help improve your lighting. If you realize that lighting is just a balancing act between four major things. The first one would be the actual physical distance of your light to your subject, and then balance that with the power of the light to affect your exposure. But that is also a balancing act between your reflection, which would be the third main principle. So the reflection of your light on your subject. Distance can play a factor in that, as well as the angle of the light or the placement of the light. And the fourth major principle is the spill of the light. How much of your light is spilling on your background or on other subjects in your scene. So balancing those four things really play a key role in your lighting. And once you have a firm grasp on their relationship to each other, you can start to play around them, you can start to play around with them or really improve your lighting pretty quickly. So for this first light, now that it's set up and that's all fully explained, this is going to be my key light, and I'm going to place it slightly behind my subject. I'll turn on my light here, it kind of helps. And I'm going to angle it kind of behind the light a little bit, hoping to kiss the edge of the glass, create a nice reflection, and bounce the light into the lens. I think this is a pretty good, I'm going to raise it up just a tiny bit more. I think this is a pretty good start to the first light. Let's test it out and take the first photo. Now, to help get the lighting to where I want it to be and further add shape to that reflection on the left-hand side of my glass, I'm going to place a large roll of diffusion paper on a C-stand and extension arm here between my light and the table. These large rolls of diffusion paper are probably one of my favorite pieces of photography gear. You can buy them in large rolls. They're relatively cheap, and you can cut them down to fit your needs. I prefer the large rolls because they do cover most of the size of tables that I use to photograph on without having light spill out on either side. They are a little bit thicker, so they're about the same thickness as a softbox, and you will have to increase the exposure of your light after you put them up to get back to the same exposure that you had before. What this is going to do though, is it's going to spread out that light and fill in those shadows, basically decreasing the contrast, but at the same time adding some more 3D shape to your subject. It's really the secret sauce to most of my lighting. So we can go ahead and take the pictures and you guys can see the difference between the bare bulb and the diffusion. Now that I have the left-hand side of the glass kind of taken care of, I want to add some specular highlights and some fill to the right-hand side of my drink here. So I'm going to add another light, kind of move this into the right and tilt it forward a little bit. I'm using a dish reflector and a 20-degree grid combo. This is going to help contain this light, just center it around the drink here. I'll turn it on so you can kind of see. And prevent it from spilling too much on my background. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit and just give it a little spotlight effect there. Like I said, it's all about managing those 4 key aspects of lighting, which is, distance and power and spill and reflection. So I got this really close up. It's at the lowest power. I'm using that grid to manage my spill and not blow out my background. And the reflections that I'm going for are some really nice specular highlights off of the cells on my grapefruit. Before we take this picture though, I noticed that this light is still a little too hot, so I'm going to turn it down a bit to right about there. And then hop back over here and we can take our picture and see where we're at. If the lights fire. There we go. Okay, so I've added another light here to liven up my background a bit. It's looking a little flat, so I want to give it that 3D look. I'm using a grid with I'm using a snoot with a grid attachment on the end. That should give me a nice narrow beam of light there on the background. I don't want to overdo it and make my background too bright, because my ultimate plan is to have a bunch of fizz popping off the top of the drink there. And if the background is too bright, then you won't be able to see the fizz. But we can take a shot and see where we're at. Yeah, so you can see here, it's too bright in that top right-hand corner. So I'm gonna lower this a little bit. I really want that line of light to be below the rim of the drink so we can see the fizz against the darker background. Take another shot. Somewhere about there, actually, it looks pretty good. So we get that nice darker orange to the right-hand side there, and a nice gradient of light kind of coming from behind the drink. I think this is actually a good stopping point where we can dump the stand in and bring in the final cocktail. Okay, so I got my Foley style drink back on the table. It's back into position, and I filled it up about halfway with grapefruit juice, and the rest is going to be this tonic water. The idea there is it's going to give me enough room in the glass to capture as many bubbles and fizz as I possibly can while still maintaining the color. Now I've moved my video camera and my video lights so you guys can see what's going on here. I'm sorry if it's a little dark, but I just didn't want you to have to look at my backside the entire time I'm taking photos. I am a little nervous here. I have to admit it that I'm a little nervous that I'm not going to capture as much bubbles and fizz as I want to. And if that happens, it's really going to be kind of the death of this image, because it's the whole point of it. And I really only have, I think, just enough stuff to maybe have one more go at it. I'm at my last grapefruit here, so fingers crossed. But as I pour, I am going to be taking multiple shots. That way I can capture as many bubbles and as much fizz as possible to hopefully later on composite the best of the best back into Photoshop. But if I do get something that I'm satisfied with, I'm going to go back in and style a couple of more elements that I think will turn this image up a notch, crank it up to 11. But with that being said, I guess all that's left to do is start pouring. Didn't really capture any fizz on that one, so I'm just going to pour a little bit more. Hopefully, maybe that'll do it. I don't know. I think it might be a huge fail. Okay, so I'm going to remake the drink and try it again. Hopefully next time we can capture more fizz. Okay, so that first time was a huge fail. I'm going to try again. I got it reset. It's back into position. I tried to pour it out as carefully as possible and not ruin kind of the garnish there. So hopefully round 2 is a little bit better. We'll see. Okay, so I've reset the drink, restyled it. It's back on the table, back into position. I've added a few ice cubes this time, hoping that that will create more bubbles and fizz. I ran out of tonic water, so I'm left with some ginger ale. Hopefully that doesn't change the color too much, but we'll give it a go. See if we got any fizz. Okay, so we did in fact capture some fizz. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna go ahead and add those other styling elements that I was talking about earlier, and we'll finish off this shot. So I have some glycerin here, and I'm just gonna try to get a really nice drip coming down the side of the glass. I got some nice drips right now, but I'm just trying to get something that looks subtle, not too dramatic. All right, so I think I have more than enough images to go back and composite to make one ultimate image, but it took 3 tries, but hey, the third time's a charm, right? Now here's the final image all composited together inside of Photoshop. I chose one image for the drink, the bubbles, the grapefruit, all the main stuff, one image for that really great drip, one image for a couple of drips on top of the grapefruit rind there, and about 3 to 4 images together to make up all the fizz coming off the top of the glass. All in all, I think it turned out pretty good. Well, that's a wrap. Woo! Well, at least the shoot's done. Now I have a lot of editing to do. And if you want to see a full editing breakdown of how I put this drink shot together, I'll post that video over on my Patreon. So go check it out there, join the party, learn some tricks inside of Photoshop, and see all the new videos first, behind the scene content, all that good stuff. But that's it for this video. I'll place a link in the description for all the equipment that I use, as always. And drop some likes, comments, shares, notifications, all the buttons, hit them all. It really does help, and I really do appreciate it. Drop some comments down below. Let me know how you've been doing. But as always, I'll see you in the next one.
Man, I need some more coffee.